Why is it taking so long? We're reaching the midway point of this week, this incredibly busy week for all things hockey. We just had the Game 7 of Stanley Cup Final earlier this week. The NHL Draft is going to be at the tail end of it. And the beginning of next week, we got free agency. No better place to have us break it all down than right here on Locked On NHL in Utah. We're going to talk about all of that on today's episode.
You are Locked On NHL in Utah, your daily podcast on all things hockey in Utah, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the show, everybody. This is Locked On NHL in Utah, your number one daily podcast on all things hockey in Utah and the Utah Hockey Club. I am your host, Robyn Leonio, alongside Tom Callahan. We want to thank everyone for making this show your first listen every day. We are free and available everywhere you get your shows. We got a great episode coming up today. We're going to get into some free agency talk. We're going to talk a little bit of the Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final, give you our reactions of what happened, because everyone loved to talk about that game. One of the best games we can probably watch. No better thing than a Game 7. But before we get into any of all that, Tom, let's start off with our leading story of all of this, because this is a continuation of what was formerly the Locked On Coyotes show. We got a lot of quote deactivated Arizona Coyotes fans that are remnant. Maybe they're following Utah now because it's basically the same team, just different franchise. We're gonna get some Arizona Coyotes updates for you in saying that, hey, let's take a look now. Alex Meruelo, now former owner of the Arizona Coyotes, is walking away.
Can I just say I'm surprised? I felt like if that was your breaking point, they canceled the auction. Maybe somebody had been counseling you, hey, this really is your last straw. Maybe the league knew this going into it. There wasn't. And so the interesting thing that came out, just to back up to the cancellation of the land auction, the state of Arizona basically said that it was approved for an arena, just not one that big, that was essentially a megaplex that included mixed use, including housing, including shopping, and 17,000 seats. It was approved for something maybe like a 3,000 seat arena, something like that would have been
junior
fine.
level thing
under the zoning. So then the part B that follows that, as I did more reading into the situation, was the only one who can make that request to see if the zoning can be changed is the property owner. So it's not as if the Coyotes could have made that request before purchasing the land. They would have had to buy the land, even if the auction went forward, then make the request. And then if they make the request and it's denied, they're stuck with this 80-something acre parcel of land. So there's just so many twists and turns to this. Will the Coyotes come back someday? I think they will, but now it's going to be a while. We're talking probably 10 years down the road. I've already heard, Robyn, a couple of people that I know, and obviously you're pretty plugged in over there too, but I've heard that there are two groups that already are talking about bringing hockey back, but it's just not happening right away. But I am shocked. I am actually genuinely shocked when I read this news that he's just walking away from ownership of the team. I was very surprised.
It certainly is a little bit of a surprise. I honestly think it was the joke, the kind of continuation of the joke I said earlier. I think that was, one of the options I had on my bingo card, that he just walks away, because at this point, if he continues to lose time after time after time, getting kicked out of Glendale, losing the Tempe vote, failing to secure land in Mesa, as he put it, a letter of intent to purchase the land there. And then the whole Phoenix thing. You're running out of options with cities. No one's going to want to work with you. maybe he's realized, finally realized that he's like, all right, I'm out of options. There's nothing I can do, at least for him. My hope, Tom, is that, and again, as you said, it potentially could come back later, past this 5-year window. My hope is that the actual assets he can return to back into the National Hockey League and goes out and says, let's get rid of this window. Let's allow another ownership group to take this right now, to take this, to take up the opportunity to purchase the branding, purchase the trademarks, all of that right now, so they can get it done as soon as possible. That's the best case scenario to get hockey back, National Hockey League level of hockey back in Arizona anytime soon. But it's going to take a while to even figure all those details out.
And the other thing was the other thing too with the zoning was not only was it they were unable to guarantee that they could build housing or an arena that size, but also some of the other options, they really want a sports book. And that's where all Meruelo's money is, a sports book, and gambling and casinos and that kind of thing. It's in gaming. The inability to build a sports book, especially in today's day and age, was seen as a massive drawback as far as the ability to make money. There is financial incentive to walk away, because if he reactivated in the 5-year window, he has to give the $1 billion back he got from the sale of the team.
Yep. It's actually technically be a little bit more, because he'd have to pay a little bit more, because I think he ended up getting $800 million, because $200 million went to Andrew Barroway, because he was still technically at the time the minority owner.
And that's just, I guess if you're a businessman and you look at that money in your pocket and you're just, okay, why am I beating my head against a wall at this point? Okay.
He essentially sold the Coyotes for a profit, and he's like, all right, I got some money. Even though, from my understanding, he ended up having to use all that to pay off the debts that he's had, other kind of debts he's had.
Right.
So it's a whole complicated scenario. One thing I want to add to all of this is it does seem like the intention is he still holds on to ownership of the Tucson Roadrunners for now. And the intention,
and that was a question I was going to have.
Yeah. The intention is, Tom, that once he is done with the lease in Tucson, to move them up to Reno, because he built an arena. He's just finishing up building an arena in Reno over at his casino that's supposed to be the home of the basketball team for the University of Nevada. But now he's going to see if he can get an AHL franchise up there, which, based off the location, very likely would mean that could very well be the new continue to be the AHL affiliate of the Utah Hockey Club.
Welcome to the lame duck years. Man, that's a sick feeling. So everybody was celebrating being able to keep the team in Tucson a couple of weeks ago, which
even then, even more of Tucson was able to celebrate, because just the other day, just a couple of days ago, where Tucson's like, oh yeah, now all the games are going to be in Tucson rather than just 6 games at Mullet. That even got canceled away.
Yep.
So,
well, here we are.
Shows you the step-by-step thing. They're realizing, as you said, it is that lame duck. It seems very well, but they're just preparing to move this team over to Reno.
Yeah, and which honestly positions them very well for a Salt Lake affiliation. So,
it does.
That seems to be a no-brainer.
I don't see who else it would be, because Vegas already has their AHL affiliate in Henderson.
Right.
And there's an ECHL affiliate, most likely for Vegas, is happening in Lake Tahoe. So this doesn't really leave you much else room. It's like, who else would it be? San Jose's got theirs in San Jose. Right.
And they just built up a new building. So, yeah, the only other cities that have had on the West Coast that have had AHL hockey, and that hasn't really stuck, was Stockton, California. Other cities that could host, so Bakersfield still has theirs. Fresno has a building. There would be a possibility to go in there. But other than that, there's not a whole lot of options. I guess you could stick a team in Sacramento, but I feel like that's probably the best the best outcome, as that team continues to be the AHL farm team for what was the Coyotes, is now Utah HC, and they end up probably moving a little bit closer to Salt Lake.
And what I did look it up. I mean, you're talking about just a single interstate. So just like how it was for like, the Coyotes in Tucson, where it was like just, a 2-hour drive off the Interstate 10. This one was like a 6-7 hour drive on the Interstate 80. I want to say 40 to 80. So
if a guy had to drive, he probably could still make a game day call up if he knew first thing in the morning, or you can catch a flight.
Yeah, probably a very easy flight, especially if it's, it's being paid. Like, just like, yeah, let's get you a charter flight or something even.
No, you probably aren't doing that. You're telling the guy to drive it that get in your car and get up here.
Fair enough.
But yeah, so that's kind of interesting news, and it's big news for anyone who followed this Coyotes. It really is a saga, as we've talked about. But for him to walk away, I was surprised. I thought there would be at least one more kick at the can, but I guess not.
Yeah, no, it really is unfortunate. I do feel bad significantly for Arizona Coyotes fans. I still feel a little bit of the pain, Tom, as someone who still currently lives in Arizona. Got a little bit of question mark in my future. Don't know what time I'm gonna where I could potentially be down the road, but at least for now, still call Arizona, specifically the Valley right now, home, and I can tell you, this stings among the community. I play hockey here. The community is hurt by all of this and continues to get hurt after all this continued news.
Yeah, it's a tough one, but it's a business at the end of the day. I mean, they play a sport, it's a game, but it's a business, and these guys are not playing with Tinker Toys. This is a lot of money.
It really is. But we'll continue to keep you guys updated because Meruelo's, like we mentioned, Meruelo still owns the Roadrunners. Any updates that come out, because they are the affiliate of the Utah Hockey Club, we'll give to you when we know more right here on the Locked On NHL in Utah podcast. But we still got more to get to on this show. We're going to get to some free agency talks. Who are some top targets that Utah should be taking a look at heading into the free agency period, ready to open in just days from now? We'll talk about that right after this. And today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Gametime makes it easy to get tickets, much easier, much faster. Prices in the Gametime app usually go down the closer it gets to tip-off. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seats, and the lowest price guarantee. Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets for all kinds of events in your area, whether it is, hey, you guys might be going to a Utah Jazz game next season, or maybe a Utah Hockey Club game, any other kinds of sporting events, comedy shows, concerts, you name it. Gametime has it all with their last-minute tickets, flash deals, zone deals, easy to find for all kinds of events, views from your seats, lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, job loss protection, and as well, my favorite feature, all-in pricing. Toggle this feature. It shows you the total up front, so you will not get surprised by those crazy fees when you hit the checkout button. Once again, take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Download Gametime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. And we'll keep things rolling on this episode of Locked On NHL in Utah. Let's get to some free agency talk, Tom, because we're in just days after the draft, just only a couple days after the draft, really. July 1st, also known as Canada Day for any of our friends from the north. Almost always, it's free agency day. The COVID years kind of changed things up a little bit. It was on a whole different day. But most of the time, it is on July 1st. So we are less than a week away from that, Tom. So we do need to get into some of that free agency talk. We kind of did a little bit of hypotheticals, but let's get into actually talking realistic targets that Utah should be chasing after when this period opens.
I'm going to start with a big question mark guy. There are some names out here and some decisions for other teams is the important thing too for us to keep in mind as we get closer to free agency. Some teams have decisions where it's going to be one guy or the other, not both, or
Mm-hmm.
2 out of 3. So, for instance, Carolina has both Brady Shea and Brett Pesci coming up. They're both probably due a raise. I don't know that they keep both of those guys. So, you would want to look at whichever one is going to walk because they're both excellent defenders. They're both guys that I would want on my team. But before we get into that situation, the question mark guy that I have is John Klingberg. He's a right-hand shot, only played 14 games this year, had a hip injury, has been out since I think December, 6-month recovery period for him to come back. And so he really is probably just going to start skating in the summer here. So he's about on that schedule. Kind of a, pardon the pun, bad break, heading into a year where he is a free agent, but really good with Dallas. Not as good with Toronto. I think he was disappointing with the Leafs, and certainly the injury didn't help. Who knows how he could have finished this year, especially motivated by a contract. But right shot defensemen don't grow on trees. He is a guy who can lead a power play. He's more of a veteran guy. And to me, when I look at, and I'm starting with defense, obviously on purpose, because there's some need here. A lot of these defensemen that are out here, in fact, probably right up until you hit Brett Pesci, who's 29, there's a lot of 30 plus guys out here. Tyler Myers, Alec Martinez, Brady Shea, TJ Brody, Chris Tanev, Barry Zaitsev. Like it's a long list of these guys. And so Brendan Dillon is going to hit the market out of Winnipeg, or at least it looks like he's going to. I'm kind of interested to see how that's all going to pan itself out. I would always say, oh, that's the other one. Florida, they have a huge decision to make. Are they going to keep Brandon Montour? Montour is a guy who moves the puck and skate, can be a PP1 defenseman and, right-hand shot guy, but there's also a Sam Reinhart contract coming up. There's some other contracts coming up for Florida. Florida's got questions. Tampa Bay's got questions. So any of these guys could be available. Any of them are immediate improvements for Utah. Utah's got the room to play with. So I think that defensively, there's a lot of guys, Robyn, that they could reach out and grab and improve the blue line immediately.
You took a lot of those players, names right out of my mouth. I think those are really huge targets to look after because defense is definitely, priority number one. And because, sure, we talked about the restricted free agents and, the hope is to have all 3 of those RFAs back, but that's only 3. You still have to fill up the other 3. And how, where you going to get those? You can get some really solid guys. And again, the benefit is that you have a Utah team who can spend the money because they've, as we mentioned, have $20 million before they even reach the floor. They got over nearly $40 million in actual cap space. The question is, how much are they actually going to spend? We don't know. With the number that Bill Armstrong and Chris Armstrong were told, all right, this is the number that you can spend on for player salaries. Maybe they were told, hey, if you want to, spend up to the cap. We're not in that room. We can't tell you all that. But we do know that they have the room, so they can afford to potentially play the steal game a little bit. And with the example of like Brandon Montour, as you mentioned, with the situation in Florida, it's like, hey, you might be able to say, all right, Florida wants to go ahead and give Reinhart a better deal. They can't afford to keep Montour. So Utah can go ahead and say, we're going to go ahead and offer you a contract that Florida definitely cannot match.
Right. And I mean, there's another guy, Dmitry Kulikov from Florida. OEL. I mean, it's not really coming home. That's the other thing I was thinking about that. I'm like, what about guys who might, quote unquote, come home? Because a name that I would actually put on my list that I'd love to see them reacquire is Ilya Lyubushkin. I would like to see them bring him back in because he likes to throw the body around. He's a big physical guy. He's a 5'6" guy. He won't be that expensive. I think he would be a player I'd love to see back in the franchise fold. But yeah, I thought about that. I'm like, how many of these guys would really think of it as it's not coming home anymore. It's not like OEL is coming in to take a victory lap, or any of these guys come in to take a victory. Like that's That's not a thing anymore. So, I guess maybe some of the nostalgia factor you could have wooed somebody with is gone. And again, not to say that everybody that's a free agent right now will be on July 1. Some of them are re-signing. Some of them won't be available, but some hard decisions have to be made.
They really do. And I feel like those are kind of the things that, again, got to consider taking a look at the players that are available. And heck, even as a reverser, we talked about, when I mentioned Montour too, like Utah could even try to play the exact same game with Reinhart. Be like,
sure,
let's at the very least, maybe even make an offer. We won't know if they do make an offer or not. I mean, maybe we will, but it's, the point is you target them. You at least target them and try to give them a number, what they might be happy with, because that's what this free agency game is about. There's going to be a lot of going forward for the most part, which is really interesting, Tom. I've always thought it really intriguing. Technically, you're not allowed to, quote, truly negotiate until that period opens.
Right.
Yet the moment it opens, let's say it's like, what is it? Like 7 a.m. Pacific time or whatever it is.
At 7:00.30, there are like deals already being signed.
Yeah, just like, all right, deal. Like how does that happen?
Well, we know how it happens.
Yes, a lot of back channeling on that, but it really is astonishing seeing all that put together. I am really curious again if like how much of a splash exactly is Utah looking at?
And you know what? You can make a splash up front where for the most part they're set, but you would love to add, I mean, Sam Reinhart's got to be a fantasy type guy who had an amazing season this year, like career high in goals, and obviously was, big score in the Cup winner. I don't know if those are realistic though. So I want to temper expectations because I don't want to throw out a bunch of names and everybody go, oh yeah, let's go get that guy. And you're probably not going to be able to get that guy. But a couple of names up front I want to put out there as possibilities because there are some decisions that have to be made here coming up on some of these players. This guy is way under the radar. It's Victor Olofsson. Terrible season in Buffalo this year. He was awful. 51 games, only 15 points. Just bad. But if you go back a couple of years, he was a very good one-time power play option on the wing for Buffalo, had the ability to shoot and score goals. I don't know if he's fallen out of favor with the new coaching staff or if maybe he's had a decline. I would have to look a little deeper into that, but I think he's a name I would have on my list as far as researching that. It's interesting looking at Detroit. You have both David Perron and Patrick Kane that are up. Perron's now 36, but everywhere he goes, teams seem to get better. He's one of those guys, and I'm not suggesting that Utah get Patrick Kane because I don't think they ever would. But David Perron is a guy who goes somewhere and improves a team. Now, honestly, if I'm a Cup contender and I feel like maybe Boston could use a player like him. You know what I mean? Like
right.
if you don't have your Bergeron anymore, you could bring in Perron, who's not quite the same player, or Marchand. But of course, older teams get injured. Perron is not a spring chicken. And one other guy, speaking of Boston, I wanted to bring it around, Jake DeBrusk. Big question mark hanging over him right now, too. He's bounced around a bit. He's 27. I feel like this is a make or break period in the career of Jake DeBrusk. He's either going to get better or he's not. Utah is a good place to go, find your game, do it out of the spotlight, and have a real chance to contribute. And I think it's worth the upside.
What are the odds? I mean, again, this is like this is more of a huge shot to try to get. And again, only because Utah has the room for it. But what are the odds they try to go after someone like, let's say, Jake Gensel?
I mean, the odds are good because they have the money. If you reach out to a guy like Gensel, the question is, so there's a couple of questions from Jake, or me for Jake, I should say. So how concerned are you with a Cup? Are you still chasing Lord Stanley? Are you looking to be a part of something and build something? Some guys never really care about winning the cup. They just want to have a secure financial future. Some guys, that's all they care about is winning the cup, and they don't care if you pay them $1 a day. Then there's the mix of everybody else who are like, I'd like to go somewhere and win, but I also want to get paid well. So where do you stand? That's an important question, because obviously Utah is a couple of years away minimum from
Mhm.
really being able to make that charge. Now, can they contend in the next 2-3 years? Yes. Are they going to the final in 2-3 years? Not without a lot of dominoes falling the right way. So, but he could come here and be a part of something that gets built in Utah. And I feel like if you're going to spend the money on a guy, now the question is, of course, when you take a player away from Malkin, Letang, Crosby, all those talented players, who do you really have? And that's an answer that, I think we saw a little bit of. I think he's a quality player. Don't get me wrong.
Mhm.
But as you get a little further away from that, do you put him? Well, you would put him on the top line. Who do you move? How do you shuffle guys around? That's all part of it too. So it's the fit. Where would you place him in the lineup? So I don't mind it though. I think if Utah wants to make a splash, why not?
That'd be a good one to do. We're certain, and like I feel like it's certainly more realistic than Steven Stamkos.
Who
So
I honestly do. I think Tampa Bay is going to figure something out with him. I
yeah,
really do. I can't see him getting out there. I'll tell you a guy who's going to get overpaid if he hits the market is Warren Fogle.
okay,
Like
yeah,
I like Fogle. He had a really good playoffs, made himself kind of a star in Edmonton, but man, he's going to get way overpaid by somebody.
yeah. There's certainly a lot of options, and we just named a few. Maybe we'll if you have any thoughts, you can mention. You can interact with us on social media. We can interact back. Give us your thoughts, and we'll provide whether or not we actually think that might be a good target or not, and whatever it might be. Because there are so many players that we didn't even not mention, that we didn't get a chance to mention, that we can certainly talk on off mic if you guys really like to. But we still
We
got
only have
more to
so
get.
much time.
Yeah, we still
Yeah.
got more to get to on this episode of Locked On NHL in Utah. We're going to get to some a little bit more of the league side news. We're going to react to our games, the Game 7 that happened on Monday. Give us our thoughts on what went down in the Stanley Cup final. We'll do that right after this. Let's finish things off on this episode of Locked On NHL in Utah as we get ready for the NHL draft coming up this week. Free agency opening up early next week. So much things going on. So many packed things. We just finished at the first bit of all that packed week, Tom, and Game 7 of the Stanley Cup final, which I'm sure almost every single hockey fan was glued to the TV for, because how often do we get Game 7 of the final of the greatest playoffs in pro sports?
I have a friend of a friend, the sad story, who is a hockey fan who did not get to watch Game 7 because his girls wanted to watch the Olympic trials. So I was ready to volunteer my login for ESPN to help out, but I don't know what ever became of that because I didn't hear the end of the story on that. But as far as I know, his daughters had him watching the Olympic trials, and I'm like, okay. But for everybody else who got a chance to see it, man, how awesome was that? I mean, it was end to end. It was intense right from the get-go. It had everything you wanted it to have. It just, it was so entertaining. It was such a great game. The stretch that I'm going to be talking about for years is that it was almost 6 minutes of uninterrupted hockey until that Reinhart goal. And
Yep.
it was back and forth. There were saves, there were hits, there was everything in there. There was turnovers, change of possession, odd man rushes. Everything was in there. And the teams didn't get a chance to get full breathers, no whistles. It was an incredible stretch of hockey. It was trading chances, two teams going at it, as my buddy Stu Grimson likes to say, hammer and tong. And I enjoyed every minute of it.
One of the most amazing things, Tom, and something that you mentioned going into like a low preview talk about it, and saying that, hey, if this game, a lot of this game will essentially ride on whether or not we're going to see the first couple games of Sergei Bobrovsky or the last couple of games of Sergei Bobrovsky. We ended up getting the former, and oh my God, was it impressive. Standing on his head, I was astonished on how he kept some shots out watching that game. I was freaking screaming at the top of my head.
And especially down the stretch, Robyn, guys selling out to block shots, dive through the crease. Like there was that one where he had to flop over to his right. He was down. He was out of position. There's one. Edmonton was on the power play and Bob was scrambling around like, get your stick. You're right, but it was nuts. It was frantic, but it was awesome.
It was certainly amazing, which kind of gets me to the point that I want to add on this, which surprised me a bit that Sergei Bobrovsky did not get the Conn Smythe Trophy. Ended up going to Connor McDavid, which again, I feel like if it was going to go to somebody on the losing team, Connor McDavid was going to be the one to get it. I'm kind of one of those people that believes it should go to the winning team because we're talking a player that added so much value. That's the reason why they won. But so you can have different opinions than I do, but that's my opinion. I thought it should have gone to a player on the winning team, and if it was going to be that, it should have been Sergei Bobrovsky.
I mean, I don't have a problem with people making a case for Bob winning it, but I think McDavid was the right recipient of the award. He had a historic playoff.
He had like
historic.
Even in the finals alone, didn't he had like 11 points or something like that?
He was huge, and he really carried Edmonton in a lot of think of the early series, the teams they had to beat to get to where they were. Everybody was like, Vancouver's going to wipe the floor with them. Didn't happen. Everybody's like, Dallas is going to put up a lot of roadblocks. There's no way Edmonton can get past these guys. And look, it's a team effort. It's a team game. But Connor McDavid was able to put them on his back. And I'll say it, Robyn. We talked about it at the beginning, and I said if this goes 7, I did the math. It was 12,500 miles in flights for Edmonton, not for Florida, because Florida started at home. So in the third period of Game 7, and I think Ray Ferraro even referenced it late, but I noticed it probably 5 minutes into the third, they were dead. The Oilers were dead tired. They had nothing left. There was even a rush in the second period where McDavid just didn't have the gas to make the cuts that he normally makes. He was exhausted. And that travel back for that final Game 7, and people it did. And I think that it was a difference in the Game 7. But you know what? That's why you play so hard for home ice advantage. That's why it matters. Right there, boom, Game 7. That is exactly why it matters. Did the crowd matter as much as the travel? I don't even know that it did.
No, probably not, because if you heard, there were a lot of Edmonton fans in that arena.
Yeah, there was. There really was, and it was pretty cool, which made for a fantastic atmosphere. I think it was fantastic. So, but at the end of the day, I mean, like I say, I picked the Panthers. I picked them in 6, not 7, but no matter who won, I would not find fault with the champion. They got there in their own way, playing their own brand of hockey. The series was amazing, and it didn't get exciting, honestly, until Game 4. But then it got exciting, and we were treated to one of the best games we've seen in years.
I'll give you a little quick fun fact now, though. Now that the Florida Panthers are Stanley Cup champions, is 4 of the last 5 Stanley Cup champions are Sun Belt teams. The areas where people would never have even thought that hockey would work in those areas.
So here's another fun fact. So Montreal was the last Canadian team to win the Cup in 93. 93 against the Kings. Since then, there have been, I think, 6 Cup finals involving a Canadian team. 5 of them have been losses to Sunbelt teams, so-called Sunbelt teams. The only exception was Boston beating Vancouver in 2011. Other than that, you're looking at Florida, you're looking at Tampa, you're looking at Carolina, so the Canadian teams that lose, they've been losing to the markets where everyone's like, they don't deserve a team. They don't deserve a Stanley Cup. Hey, man, they're winning. So
they are winning. So, hockey does work in these, obscure areas, even though it might not have ice naturally. You know what?
That's
matter.
why
Doesn't matter.
I hate the phrase non-traditional market. Every market's a hockey market. Every market. If people there love the game, whether they play on the street or on ice or in their living room playing NHL on whatever your console is, who cares? If you love the game, you love the game. I don't care where your city is.
I'll give, Arizona as a huge example. Like, I've got just 9 years in Arizona. I got a chance to see the sport grow even more than what it has in, previous 30, 25, whatever years, however many it's been. Where it's gone from just a couple sheets of ice to like 7, 8 sheets of ice in the valley, where you have so many people going to play youth hockey. People say it doesn't work in Arizona, but it does. So much youth hockey, and we're just continuing to churn out talent. You got some great people coming out of Arizona, like Austin Matthews and Matthew Nyes. And that's kind of the thing that I love to see, is when you have teams from these markets winning, it kind of proves something.
The interesting thing to me, so great athletes are great athletes, no matter what sport they ultimately choose. I think if you grow up playing basketball and you are a great athlete, you'll eventually be a great athlete at basketball. But if you pick baseball, you'll eventually be, and that's why one of the problems baseball has is getting kids to actually pick it to play it, because a lot of kids are not playing baseball anymore.
Right.
But I think hockey has that same problem. Think of how many gifted athletes. Soccer is another one. Think of how many gifted athletes could be world-class soccer players, but choose other sports or choose no sports at all. So, yeah. I mean, it's a huge country. There is a lot that, I mean, it's a diverse population, but selfishly, as whatever your game is, as a fan of your game, you want kids to choose it growing up. It's a little harder with hockey because it is so expensive. That's why NHL is doing what it can to make that cheaper, more accessible. But at the end of the day, there are still some incredibly talented athletes in this country who play hockey, fall in love with the game. And it could be happening right now in Arizona, in somewhere in a suburban rink in Phoenix. Somebody is just absolutely falling in love with stick and puck.
Here's something that I'll give you as a huge example for that. And again, this is not even for youth hockey. It's for adult hockey. And we're talking about me. I never played before until almost 2 years ago, when I moved up here to Phoenix, because in Tucson we didn't have any ice other than the Roadrunners ice, which was rarely ever available to anybody. I moved up to Phoenix. Some dude calls me. He's like, "Hey, do you want to play hockey this year?" I'm like, "I've never played before. I don't have any equipment. I don't know I don't know what to expect. Don't worry, we got you." Come the next day, I have gear somehow because it gets all donated to me. Step on the ice. I'm terrible, absolutely terrible, but I feel welcomed, and I instantly fall in love. I'm like, I love this. Keep me here.
Sometimes the bug bites you. Yep, can't argue that.
I absolutely love it, and if I decide to stay in Arizona for a little bit longer, obviously I'll still play hockey here. Otherwise, wherever I end up going after that, maybe I'll find some hockey leagues in my new home to play at, because I just can't stay away from it at this point.
Okay, we'll have fun in Alaska.
oh God, I don't know if I could ever go to Alaska.
Alaska is gorgeous. It is gorgeous. And if you're in Anchorage, believe it or not, in the summer, it can hit 80 degrees in Anchorage. But
that's interesting. I didn't know.
But yeah, the lack of sunlight in the winter might get to me. So, but seriously, that's a great story. I appreciate you sharing that with everybody, because it is important to note, even as an adult, if you've never played this game, but you want to get on skates, you want to give it a shot, I am sure Utah Hockey Club is going to start bringing those opportunities even more so.
Add learn to play programs.
Absolutely.
And in those adult learn to play programs, like the Coyotes have done, they have these like gear drives where you're like, hey, you spend a little bit of money, like maybe a little bit of extra money, and you'll get some recycled gear. So you could, if you've never played before, you don't have gear, they will provide that for you. And it's kind of awesome.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. So It's a great note to end on, I think, and to let people know in Utah, hey, keep your eyes open. If you're interested in playing, there are chances and there are ways
Certainly.
to learn.
Absolutely. Well, that's going to be it for this episode of Locked On NHL in Utah. We hope you all like what you heard. We're free and available everywhere you get your podcast. So subscribe, like, comment wherever you are listening. If you're on YouTube, also don't forget to hit the notification bell. We'll get notified every time a new episode drops. Don't forget to interact with us on social media. We are on Facebook, facebook.com/LockedOnNHL in Utah, and on X at LO_NHL Utah. I'm personally at Robyn_Leonio. Tom Callahan is at Callahan on air. Interact with us, ask a question you might have. We might answer right back or on a future episode of the Locked On NHL in Utah podcast. Thanks again, everyone, for listening to today's episode, and we'll see you guys next time.